We are going through incredible times of change. And now we are paying a lot of attention and really realizing the change we're going through because of the stellium in Aquarius. Mercury already moved into Pisces, Venus is entering the cusp of Pisces right now, so now we're transiting from more clear, logical, and obvious perspectives to now starting to think, communicate, and relate to how emotionally, spiritually, and in a deep societal level, all the changes and weird stuff that we got aware as a collective, as a society, when we were going through the full Aquarius stellium, really were impacting. We're gonna see the depth and the reach of how certain emotions, certain spirits, certain patterns, and certain organizations were going through those changes. And keep in mind, always keep it local, quote unquote, because with Aquarius stellium, we got exposed to a lot of things from all around the world, but keep it local, keep it personal, keep that information for yourself. But now, because we have Mercury and Venus going into Pisces, we can start to mix and mingle too much our dreams, our illusions, our feelings, and our sense of safety with all the information, all the changes, all the weird stuff that we were aware of right in our face, in our surroundings, in our passions, in our relationships, etc., when we're going through the full Aquarius stellium. So just don't mix and mingle too much yourself with whatever information you were exposed to or that you came across yourself. So the Aquarius stellium is actually the main point of focus in this video, because we're always going through change, right? The only thing constant in the universe is change. But sometimes we are more aware of it and we can understand it better. Sometimes we feel more insecure about certain changes. Sometimes we feel more motivated and passionate. Some changes come through rebellious energies, other changes come from humanitarian social desires, and other changes come just from a desire, a new thought, a new feeling, a new desire, or a new intensity of a certain desire that you had. And not only that, sometimes we can recognize that the world or certain big geographical locations, regions, or cultures are going through changes that are very noticeable on a larger scale. And those changes are always more impactful and interesting for other spirits to be aware of and communicate between each other about. Or maybe because they just in a super big scale and scope, you were a part of those changes. You had to go through those changes or witness those changes. Especially the Aquarius stellium was giving us a lot of information, a lot of clear, logical, societal, and structural perspectives about Pluto in Aquarius. Because Pluto is the planet of transformation, and transformation is a lot of changes in a short period of time, or very deep changes that change everything, but that happen over a very long period of time, because many things need to change in order to create that big change. And not only that, Aquarius itself is co-ruled by Uranus, which is the planet of rebellion, opposition, innovation, youth, and refreshment. Restarting something with the same purpose, with the same idea, perhaps a slight different approach, but renewing, bringing fresh air. And then Aquarius is also an air sign, so more flexibility, more elasticity, more unpredictability, less emotion, less feeling. But because Aquarius has the Uranus side, there is rebellion energy, there is innovation energy, there is a lot of spirituality, uniqueness, and individuality associated with the air element. So it brings a good balance between being logical and still being aware of spiritual and animalistic natures, and then give them order, give them a place to be real and have some good effect and outcome, and to have some good effect, outcome, purpose, and profit in a personal, societal, or structural level. Not only that, we are going through still the Aquarius in stellium. Also, Jupiter is in Cancer for a very long time. And why is that important? Because Cancer is cardinal water, creating new ways to have feelings and emotions, and creating new moods, new vibes, and new spiritual places of comfort and purpose, and also generating new wisdom and knowledge about the spiritual realm, spirituality, and spirits in general. And Jupiter being the planet of expansion, wisdom, and knowledge, it's exalted in Cancer. So for a very long time, since Jupiter is in Cancer, now it's retrograde actually, 16 degrees retrograde, so we'll be picking up back the pace soon. Jupiter in Cancer is also huge changes in how we spiritually perceive ourselves, how we perceive spirituality, and how we perceive spirituality in reality, how we derive wisdom and knowledge, and how we make sense about things that happen in reality. But now we have an inkling, we have a idea, or somebody already made theories and books and whatever about a non-physical cause to physical changes, spirit, mind, God, whatever. So Jupiter in Cancer is making us change, or we are changing already. We're just now expanding on that change and deriving wisdom and knowledge about how we perceive spirituality, our emotions and feelings, and how that links and changes reality and our relationships, business, society, structures, organization, and etc. But now we're being more aware, first on a very subconscious level, later on a conscious level, about these changes, and we are changing ourselves. So more change, right? Not only that, Saturn is coming back to Aries. Saturn went like into 2 degrees Aries, maybe just no. I think Saturn only went into 1 degrees Aries, and then it came back in retrograde to Pisces. And now it's 29 Pisces, so soon we'll be back into Aries. And why is that important? Because Aries is also a cardinal sign. So what that means is that Aries is about creating new passion, new desire, new frustration, new motivation, new feelings, new expressions, and new unique ways to perceive yourself in the middle of reality and to perceive yourself and others as creators of reality or anything in general, right? And Saturn is the planet that represents and inspires in the human race structure, limits, boundaries, organization, governments, football clubs, sporting events, music labels, society, rules, what it means to be rich, what it means to be successful, what it means to have a good life, what it means to not be realistic, what a person must do to be accepted in reality, what a person or a group of people, what an organization must do to not go to jail, to not be seen weird, to not be seen as weird. And also, it represents control, or the means to have control and manipulation in a more realistic and large scale level. So many things that involve that will now be more exposed and be seen in a new way, or new things, just new things in general, will be seen, done, and expressed about what was being used by big groups to control and manipulate certain structures, certain laws, and certain ways to perceive reality in the world. And I'm saying that in specifically because with Saturn, because with Aquarius stellium, we were aware, more people seen things literally, or they got out of their cognitive dissonance for a little bit and they connected some dots about people in power, about structures, about big organizations, and how they were taking advantage of the masses on a realistic level, on an energetical level, and how they were using the masses to build up and maintain something that it had the perspective of whomever was manipulating, applying limits and boundaries over those masses. And that exposure of whatever was going on in systems, in government, in big organizations will be even bigger because Saturn falls in Aries. So what that means is that the structures, the systems, the security systems, the limits and boundaries from organizations, from big groups of people, from big groups of thinking, big waves of perceiving reality in a certain way, they will fall down because new ones are being created. So with new systems, new boundaries, new limits, new networking, new structure being created in a realistic way, or in a potential perspective, inspirational way, the old ones will disappear and it'll be very easy to see what was behind the walls, what was behind the closed doors in the previous systems, in the previous organizations. And it can be literally new organizations showing up, or just the same organizations the same governments as before, now applying structure, limits, boundaries, and control in a new way, with a new intent, with a new purpose. But the masses now have all the tools and all the perspectives necessary to look back at the controllers that they perceive to be the controllers in their perspective, because this is Aries, so it's all about your personal perspective, right? And they have the tools to now get mad, angry, passionate, or frustrated about certain limits and boundaries, about certain manipulation to perceiving reality in a certain way. And people now have way more within themselves that spark of doing what's right and bringing to the world, demanding within the world righteousness, justice, places for uniqueness and individuality, anti-corruption, anti-weird shit that we know certain people in power and those groups of celebrity and whatnot are doing. And you've been seeing that lately a lot with the certain files being leaked, being exposed to the public in America, and many people, even from within those circles, coming forward. And people now believe more in those things as well. Before there were conspiracy theories, now there are way more facts, right? And people now, because of that stellium and Aquarius, especially a big wave of those things came to light, and not only that, people also came more into contact and they came more with a logical, clear perspective about it, and they actually believe those things. They now see it as reality. And that's also a very big sign of change. And this change will come in different areas as well. But keep in mind, we are going now through perhaps the biggest moment of change in our lifetimes. We have many, many things bringing change forward. Also, Uranus was for a very long time in Taurus, then went a little bit into Gemini. Now it's back in Taurus in retrograde, but should come back soon into Gemini. That also will bring change, rebelliousness, and opposition to how we think, communicate, and analyze within and about our surroundings. So we are going to experience, be a part, and witness in our personal surroundings about change, about opposition, about rebelliousness, about bringing things to where they make sense and where they are rightful, where we feel represented, where people feel like the right thing is being done, like the right thing is being prioritized. You know what I'm saying? And that will, in a way, conclude and at the same time elevate all the changes and transformations that Pluto in Aquarius is bringing on. And then coming back to the Aquarius stellium, that just gave us a bunch of perspectives to see in different ways and in different areas of our life and in different areas in the world how deep and impactful those changes are. So what does that mean though? What can we see in the real world that is a reflection and the consequence of all these energetical changes? And like I said, we are now being aware of them. But many of these changes, many of these patterns, many of these signs were already here. For example, the movie industry and the gaming industry. We've seen a lot of this pattern where they are failing to make good new stuff, and where they are trying to farm nostalgia, for example, and they also keep failing with that. And for example, in certain games, people are expecting better mechanics. It's like, oh, it's 2025, it's 2026, and this game doesn't have that mechanic. What were they thinking about? Or certain decisions just doesn't make sense in the movie and gaming industry or entertainment industry in general. And people are like, we've made so many good things in the past, and we have so many technology right now. We have so much technology and so much progress is being done in the art, in the medium, and now we're having worse movies and worse games. That's all the sign of change. That doesn't mean whoever is behind the movies and behind the games are bad professionals. Sometimes they are, of course, but sometimes they're really good. They just are not understanding and updating to these changes. And any moment of change brings some instability, some impracticality when it comes to getting something done, getting good result, getting good progress, because it's changing. The way we do things is changing, and the way the masses and the people enjoy gaming and movies and whatnot is also changing. And whoever is making those games and those movies, they're a part of an industry that many times, 90% of the times, they miss the shifts, they miss these big changes because they are separated from the masses, they are separated from the consumers and from the audience. You know what I'm saying? But all of that, the bad movies and the bad games, are a sign of change because in the big pile of dunk, we have some gems. We have some great movies, shows, and we have some great and amazing video games, and great artists when it comes to music, great stories when it comes to football, but it's all in the middle of the big dunk. But that's what exactly change is. It's you go through a lot of big pieces of shit, and then you create some gems, and those gems will carry all your entire journey. They will be so profitable that they will pay for all the losses, they will pay for all the investment. And we're now seeing those gems being created and being realized and being found and being executed. Because, especially when we talk about those big industries, they are very limiting and they bring a lot of boundaries to their creators, to their professionals, and they need more time because they are super slow, because they are massive corporations and massive group of individuals and people. They have huge dogmas, huge like ways that they perceive reality, and that affects their system and their efficiency, and ultimately that affects how they can connect with their consumers and audience. So one of the main points is that more than ever, audience and the industry are very disconnected because the audience, the people, they're always in the shift. Even though they don't realize it, they're always changing because they have to. That's how people survive. That's how people innovate society, communication. That's how people maintain their day-to-day entertaining and spirited. That's how people move the world forward, basically, right? So they're always aware of that change. They are the change. But then those big corporations, those big groups of thinking, they usually miss that point. And it needs time for that structure to start to realize what are the gems. And then they start to bring that to a more standardized and more normal perspective. That takes time. Another big sign of change is a lot of governmental actions. We've seen a lot of governments changing their approach to certain different problems, but they're becoming more direct. They're tackling those issues and they're making it very social, very communicative, and very out in the open. And a lot of things that were hidden, that some conspiracy people already knew about, now are coming to light and being more realistic. And that's very important because Pluto not only is the planet of transformation, it also is the planet of power and control issues, power and control struggles, fighting for power, you know? And because that is a part of transformation. When you go to a deep transformation, you must give or take control of a certain situation, aspect of yourself, or around you in your surroundings, or in your mind, or in your workplace, or in your family, whatever. That's why it is so deep, because you have to sacrifice something or you have to really change something within you, so you don't need to sacrifice those things. So because the Aquarius in stellium was giving us such a perspective, a clear fundamental perspective about the deep, what was coming out of the depths of those structures, of the governments, of the big organizations, because Pluto was for a very long time in Capricorn, so behind closed doors, in the basement, in the bedroom, in the bathroom, metaphorically speaking, of course, in those buildings, in those organizations, and then coming into Aquarius by itself is bringing those things to light. And then the Aquarius stellium just gave us many perspectives into it. And now people will start to take more action because of Aries coming back to Saturn. Do you remember when there was a lot of protests, like in Serbia, for an example, and in America as well? Uh, Midway and Nepal as well, the huge rebellion in Nepal, for an example, I think midway through 2025, that was when originally Saturn went into Aries. And now it went back into Pisces. People were more rebelling and changing emotionally, and the purposes, the meaning to fight for and to maintain a strong stance for. And now we're going to see more action. We're going to see more rebelliousness happening, more fighting happening on a social or literal level. In this specific perspective, I think people are using this energy wrong because they are fighting against the government. They are fighting against the system that is oppressing them. And I understand how people reach that conclusion, but that's not the best way to do in my perspective. In my perspective, the best thing to do in this situation is to use that passion, use that motivation that was placed against the government and against systems, and use that to shift away. Use that to sacrifice security, safety, and the good image and the good status that were false all along, and then create new communities, new ways to be real, new ways to have structure, new ways to network, new ways to associate, new ways to have limits, to have boundaries, to have systems, to have security, to have organization in a way that includes, and the main point is spirituality, your desires, your passions, your frustrations. And when I say your, it's your as a community, then you coming apart by networking, by associating your personal interests, your personal insecurities, and your personality in general with others around you on a spiritual level, not on a surrounding physical level. You create a community via the Saturn energy, networking, association, limits, and boundaries. It will take a long time because it will take a lot of restarts. It will take a lot of sparks together, but it will happen eventually. And people, if they go and fight against the government, if they go and fight against the system, that's the new system they are creating. And they're actually keeping the government in power. Because they are still treating the government or whatever they're opposing as a player as a part of the story. And not all governments are bad. Not everybody in the government is bad. We have a lot of good people in the government that are good. And with this big change, especially with Pluto in Aquarius, those people will take more action, and they will naturally, if they stay strong to themselves and to what's right, they will come into power, or power will come into them way more obviously and way quicker. And that's why also we know now many things that we didn't know before about these big structures and organizations, because they're not just letting this information out. Most likely there is some people changing their minds because they spend so much time being aware or a part of some fuck shit that now they are catching this wave of Aquarius humanitarian, realistic, purposeful energy, and they realize, I can't do this anymore, or I can't witness this anymore, I can't allow this to happen anymore, and they start to, slowly but surely, through hidden channels, release certain information that then forces big organizations to take action so they can maintain faith and maintain power and structure. So if you keep fighting against the oppressors, you keep them as a part of the story. While if you build your own community and if you build another story, they will not be a part of. And we need government. We need somebody, group of people, structures to maintain security, to maintain safety, to maintain infrastructures. We don't need is the extra bullshit. We don't need the manipulation. We don't need all the hiding. We don't need all the weird shit that they be doing behind closed doors. We don't need the fake promises. We don't need corruption. We don't need greedy people in power. And all that will be swept away with Pluto in Aquarius. And it might look, it also very important. I don't see a lot of people talking about this. Pluto in Aquarius is just taking its first steps. And it might be scary right now because now we're going through all the negative, quote unquote, things from Capricorn, and now we're changing them into more bright and light. So, for example, the AI doomerism and for people thinking that there is no escape from these corrupted governments, that's the first steps, that's the growing pains. Because we, as a community, as a mass, as a big group of people, have not created a strong belief on what comes after that. So we're just taking for granted, and we are so sure that AI will steal all the jobs and the corporations will dominate the world because that's the only thing that is real right now. Everything else, we're still coming to conclusions, we're still creating together, we're still changing our perspective about life. And that will take some time to solidify, and everybody will be like, oh, actually, AI stealing everybody's jobs can be good because AI done that, then they will do all the harsh jobs and people will have time to create and build communities. I'm not saying that's good or that's the way. That's just an example of certain better thoughts that people can come together. You know what I'm saying? Another sign of change, for example, that is now being more and more accepted is people getting off grid. You know what I'm saying? And when I say off grid, it can be extreme off grid, like they have their own solar panels and electrical power, they have their own security systems and whatever. But when I say off grid on a more moderate level, is like they are using less and less governmental systems when it comes to having a job, when it comes to their health, when it comes to education, when it comes to surviving and having stability. You know what I'm saying? I've seen more groups of people coming together and they are, for example, a financial support. And when somebody gets hurt, for example, instead of that person that got hurt get a paycheck from the state, it's the community that helps them out because certain communities already experience so much corruption from the government that they don't trust them anymore, right? And that's the type of government that we don't need. We need the type of government that is proactive in helping people. You know what I'm saying? They are there to protect and to safeguard the best interest of the people, not to corrupt and manipulate them. So, but back to the point, a lot of people experience the bad side of the government, for an example, or other organizations. It's not just the government, corporations, and even people. Because in a way, we need government, for an example, to stop people from scamming other people. You know what I'm saying? That's very important because it's very in the animalistic nature still present in humans to try to do the best deal with the least amount of effort. So scamming is very easy for spirits in human bodies to go into. So the governance is actually very good in that aspect, stopping people from scamming other people. You know what I'm saying? So perhaps some certain groups of people, they experience the worst from government, they experience the worst from corporations, they experience the worst from other people. So they're creating their own communities without sacrificing being a part of society. Because when I see, for example, certain groups of people that they go to the mountains to live by themselves, I see that as giving up. You know, they're separating from the big masses, they're separating from the big group of spirits because they couldn't change the world around them. They went to create a new world somewhere else. And that's totally valid. But the point of us being here together is to change together, is to change as a whole, or as close as possible as that, right? So the goal is to, yes, create your own community and then insert that into society. And then that changes another community, that changes another community, because what we want is the best way to live. We don't want to be in the woods all the time, right? We want to be in the woods and in the city. We want to be meditating in the forest and watching a movie in the cinema or wherever. We want that balance. That's the balance. That's the goal, right? So it's also very important to not go too extreme in this separation of society because we are the society. If everybody keeps separating from society, right, there will be no society. We need to keep that connection. And Saturn in Aries, Pluto in Aquarius is the representation of that change. How are we together creating new systems? How are we creating new societies, new communities, new values? You know what I'm saying? And the bad part of the government, they really have no choice but to change themselves. Because people, the masses, are changing in such a big, fast level that what the government used to do will not work anymore. And of course, this will take time. Saturn and Pluto have big transits through their respective signs, and Pluto being 3 degrees, it's just not taking the baby steps. Saturn is not even back into Aries, so those changes will take time. But you, on a personal level, can start working on that and see results almost immediately. What happened in this stage was that we got access to that information with the stellium in Aquarius. We were able to see, everybody was able to see it. And very interesting as well, because we have Jupiter in Cancer and we have Saturn in Aries, spirituality, or things that explain that reality is created and influenced by something outside of reality, aka the spirit, is becoming more accessible. And people that don't believe in spirituality, people that only believe in reality, are now starting to be seen as dumb. Because also, people are now realizing that people in power and in government, they were not spirited, they were not righteous, they were too lost into whatever they were thinking about, and they didn't believe in God, quote unquote. They didn't believe in all possibilities. They didn't believe, they didn't strive for the best scenario for the people. So in retrospective, people are now realizing that that type of life will lead you to a corrupted place. And if you're too logical, if you're limiting further understanding of reality, is now being considered as you being against what's right, or you limiting others to a belief of doomerism, for an example. And to finish the video, let's go a bit here into science, because there is a big wave of change that already started, of course, but will become even more and more obvious, which is quantum physics. With quantum physics, people will understand the mutability, the creative aspect of reality, and people will start to understand on a scientific level that we create and influence reality, because quantum physics is realizing how particles can disappear, come in and out of material form. And that's how we influence reality, that's how we change reality. And then in medicine, things will start to appear as well. For example, certain people, they're still in a very early phase of study, but they realize that cancer is just, quote unquote, just of course, a misalignment in the electrical biocurrent of certain areas of the body. And through reviving those two different parts, those two groups of cells, the cancer stopped growing. And actually, I've been seeing that we called cancer, the disease, the name of cancer, the constellation, because cancer is cardinal water, creating new emotions and creating new feelings. So physical cancer appears when there is new emotions, new feelings, and new spiritual purposes created, and then the whole body, the whole spirit is not aligning with that new phase, with that new wave. So those new spirits have to fight with the old spirits already existing in the body to create their world. And my father had cancer. I've known a lot of people with cancer, and they always had something blocking them. They always, before they had cancer, they were not enjoying life. That doesn't mean they were homeless, like they had stability, they had families, but there was a purpose, there was a dream, there was something very important in their lives that they were not achieving, that they were not striving, that they were not dreaming anymore. And that's very important, because we come here to life with a purpose. And if you don't live it, your spirits that came together with you to create this body, because you had the same purpose, will rebel. And that's cancer, bro. And now scientists are realizing that it's that, but in a logical, more scientific level. It's about the bioelectrical signals. And those bioelectrical signals come from the purpose, from the frequency and vibration of the spirits within you, together with you, that created this body. Also, there will be advances in medicine where they will realize that your state, the way that you live life, your spiritual state, your spirit in general, then your mind state and your emotional state affect the physical level. And that's not new. A lot of old medicines from Asia, from Africa, from South America, they already talked about that, right? It's just this new Western perspective that was too physical and too logical, and that will change as well. And this new type of medicine has the potential to be even better than the old medicine, because now we can explain it way better to each other, and we can create better food, better places to go and relax, because we have evolved as a society. And those are just some examples that came to mind about how we are going through such a big event of change. We have Pluto in Aquarius, Saturn in Aries, Uranus coming back to Gemini, and Jupiter in Cancer. Those are extremely big influences of change. Pluto in Aquarius transforming the world and what we think the world is into a more societal, light, purposeful, and righteous way to have stability, security, and structure, while incorporating uniqueness, individuality, and collective progress. Saturn in Aries, creating new feelings, new perspectives, new visions, and new actions to build structure, networking, and association derived from personal passion, personal motivation, personal frustration and personal aggressiveness, and that will by default change how people and you see what is reality, what is real, what is stable. And there will be a big change here because people know already what's stable, people already know what's safe. But is it worth it? Is it profitable on a spiritual, mental, and emotional level? No. That's why many people are now taking careers that are less profitable, or they getting off grid to be more spiritually rewarded, to be safer, to have more space to expand, to not be manipulated and sell stuff all the time, for an example. So what's considered to be profitable will change to a more spiritual side. You know, like being a musician, being an artist. And at the same time, with time as we develop this new Aries system, this new Saturn system, it will be easier to have stability being an artist, for an example. It will be easier to be a musician with a new weird musical style and still have stability. But society will walk their path into that aspect. Then Uranus in Gemini will make change, rebellion, and opposition worldwide. Everybody will be thinking, communicating, analyzing about change, rebelliousness, opposition, what's really real, what's really important, what's really interesting. And then Jupiter in Cancer is changing everything on an emotional level. New emotions, new feelings, what's the new care, what's the new purpose, because Cancer opposes Capricorn, which is where all government, all structure comes from. And all the weird shit that now people are being aware about the government now comes from the exaltation of Mars in Capricorn. Mars, desire, sex, personal interests, personal insecurities, very sensitive, very internal, passion, frustration. And that Capricorn means system, structures, boundaries, power, control, humiliation, status, maintaining something, creating a new status quo. So Mars being exalted in Capricorn makes people lost in power also be lost in their desires and doing some weird shit. And Jupiter in Cancer is creating new purposes, creating new causes for then people to build new systems and new structures around. And it's very important now that if you watch this video or other videos, now you're realizing that we're going through this big moment of change. Very important for the masses to realize what they were against and how things were against them, to not let ever again big groups, big systems take control of everything. Because the government, the corporations, the bad parts of them, the bad groups of people, they can also innovate, they can also update. It just takes way longer, and they have to mirror whatever the people are changing into. Just never again give your power away. Because Pluto is in Aquarius, it's about you having a unique reality, having a unique structure. But you have to be strong enough to apply, externalize, and stand by your limits and boundaries, your unique way to go about reality, your unique way to think, communicate, and analyze, to be humanitarian, to be progressive, to be social, and to be protective of what's right, what's clear, and what's not weird, and what is not acceptable. Keep that away. It's now up to the people to come together and create better systems and better ways to accept what's right and to repel what's wrong. And then, as Mercury and Venus go into Pisces, we'll be able to understand the spiritual side and the spiritual connection of all the things that we have seen with Aquarius stellium. That will be for another video. Just keep that in mind. Things can now become a bit more emotional, a bit more cloudy, a bit more misty, but also more exciting and more fulfilling. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy this time of change and make sure to change things for the better. Till the next time, esoteric cloud surfing out. I wish you the best thoughts, ideas, feelings, and emotions, and a whole bunch of individuality, creativity, and responsibility as well. Believe in yourself and all possibilities, and you will be alright. See you next time.